Exploring the heart of care. Cares, education, inspiration, and support for caregivers. Exploring the heart of care.
Welcome back to CareCast, where we are exploring the heart of care. I'm your host, Jeremy Watkins, and this is our continuing journey into the psychology of caregiving. In our last episode, we talked about compassion fatigue, the deep exhaustion from bearing witness to pain. If compassion fatigue is the wound, then guilt and resentment are the two infections that constantly keep it from healing. These are the two emotions that caregivers dread the most, the ones we rarely admit to having. We feel profound shame over them because they seem to contradict the love we hold for the person we care for. Today, we're bringing these feelings out of the shadows. We're going to differentiate between guilt and resentment, explore why they are inevitable, normal human responses to chronic stress, and equip you with psychological tools for processing them healthily. The goal is to move from shame and self-punishment to acceptance and self-compassion. Let's start with clear definitions, because these two emotions are often confused and they feed off of one another in a toxic cycle. Guilt is the feeling of having done something wrong. As a caregiver, this often manifests as, I should be doing more, or I was impatient with them, therefore I am failing. The psychological root of guilt stems from unrealistic expectations, either the one society imposes or the impossible superhero standard we set for ourselves. We feel guilty for having human limitations, like needing rest, feeling frustration, or making tough decisions, like placing a loved one in a professional care. Resentment, on the other hand, is directed outward. It is the bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly or having your rights denied. As a caregiver, this often sounds like, it's not fair that my life is on hold, or why am I the only one doing this? The psychological root of resentment grows in the vacuum of unmet needs. The need for support, recognition, respite, and fairness. It's a sign that your boundaries have been repeatedly crossed and your emotional energy is being taken for granted, often by others, but sometimes by the very person you're caring for. The cycle works like this. You feel exhausted and your needs are unmet, leading to resentment. Then you feel guilty for being resentful towards your loved one, which leads to guilt. To alleviate the guilt, you push yourself harder, further, and fueling the exhaustion and the cycle of resentment again. It's a psychological treadmill. To break the guilt cycle, we must challenge the inner voice that sets those impossible standards. We need cognitive reframing, which is changing the way we interpret a situation. When guilt creeps in, try these reframing techniques. Guilt is a compass. Instead of viewing guilt as proof of your failure, see it as a compass pointing towards your deepest values. You feel guilty because you care so much. You feel guilt because you have a high standard of love. Acknowledge the feeling, but reject the conclusion. The should trap. Guilt loves the word should. Write down a guilt statement you often say to yourself. For example, I should have been more patient when they spilled their tea. Now, reframe it using reality and compassion. I lost my patience and I regret that. I am under immense stress and I did the best I could in a difficult moment. I will try again next time. This separates your action, losing patience, from your identity, being a good person. The good enough standard. Accept the concept of the good enough caregiver. You are not a superhero. You are a limited human being providing loving, imperfect care. Remind yourself, my best is enough. Imperfect care delivered with love is infinitely better than perfect care delivered by an exhausted, resentful person. Resentment is much harder because it often feels justified. It burns hot, and it can be aimed at a loved one who can't even help themselves, or family members who won't help. The goal is not to eliminate resentment, but to treat it as actionable data. Resentment is a signal that a boundary has been violated or a need has been ignored. When you feel resentment, grab a journal and complete the sentence, I resent having to insert task because it means I cannot insert your unmet need or lost opportunity. This helps you pinpoint the root cause of the resentment. It's usually the loss of your own time, life, or energy, not the person themselves. Since resentment points to a boundary issue, use that feeling to fuel a request. If you resent being the only one providing care, that resentment should power a phone call to a sibling, not just an internal monologue of anger. You can say, I love Mom, but I am reaching a point of fatigue where I can't sustain this alone. I need you to commit to a weekly shift starting next Tuesday. Resentment must be translated into clear, unemotional communication. The final psychological freedom is accepting that you can love your loved one deeply and resent the situation you are in. These two emotions are not mutually exclusive. When you allow this duality to exist, this shame dissipates, and the energy that was spent on guilt can be redirected towards sustainable care. Guilt and resentment are the emotional price tags of high-stakes, long-term love. But they do not make you a bad caregiver. They make you a human caregiver. By naming them, understanding their roots and using them as fuel for self-compassion and setting boundaries, you can break that cycle. Next week, we will move into the next phase of psychological understanding, the neuroscience of stress. We will look at what chronic caregiving stress actually does to your brain and body, and how simple techniques can interrupt that harmful psychological response. Thank you for exploring the heart of care with me. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. And remember, you are doing a difficult job and you are doing your best.
Carecast, exploring the heart of care. Carecast, education, inspiration, and support for caregivers. Care.